Hi, today I'll briefly explain the doctrine of separate juridical personality under Philippine corporate law. Basically, when a corporation is formed under Republic Act 11232, the revised Corporation Code, it is legally treated as an artificial person, distinct and separate from its owners, directors, and officers. This means it can own property, enter contracts, and be sued or sue in its own name. So why does this matter? The most important effect is limited liability. If the corporation has debts or legal issues, only its assets are at risk, not the personal assets of its shareholders, except in rare cases of fraud. The law treats a corporation as a distinct person responsible for its own actions and obligations.
1, 2, 3, go. So the doctrine of corporate opportunity. So this essentially means that an insider, like a director, must not steal a good business deal or investment opportunity for their own personal profit if that deal is within the company's line of business and the company is financially able to pursue it. If an opportunity comes to a director because of their position or the information they gain through the company, they are generally forbidden from taking it for themselves. If a director takes such a business opportunity and makes money from it to the company's harm, they must account for and return all those profits to the corporation. It does not matter if the director used their own money or resources in the venture because the opportunity itself belonged to the company first. So the legal basis for this is the idea that a person cannot serve two masters, especially when one is a corporation to whom they are loyal to, and the other is their own conflicting personal interest. So the director is only excused from this liability if their act of taking the opportunity is later approved or ratified by a vote of the stockholders representing at least 2/3 of the outstanding capital stock. So this principle ensures that people in power within a company remain honest and put the corporation's success before their own private gain.
In the corporation code, we have what is known as the doctrine of centralized management. What the doctrine of centralized management essentially states is that the management of a corporation usually lies in the board of directors for stock corporations and the board of trustees for non-stock corporations. Now, this would allow for a style of management that is more organized. It essentially allows there to be a more hierarchy-based structure in terms of managing a corporation rather than it being, well, decentralized or promulgated amongst their shareholders. Shareholders still retain some power over corporations, but usually it lies or is based on more voting rights rather than them having a more control style of management over the corporation. So essentially, the doctrine of centralized management centralizes how a corporation is managed.
Next is we have concession theory. So this theory states that the corporation exists only because the state allows to it. It views the corporation as an artificial entity rather than something that exists naturally. So under this theory, the company's separate legal personality is a privilege granted by the state. So the concession theory has two versions. First is a strong version. So it says that corporations, as creatures of the state, have only those rights that the state chooses to give, like owning property, entering into contracts, suing, or being sued. So because of this, the government must regulate and control the corporate activities. Second is we have the mild version. So it still recognizes corporations as artificial creations, but once they meet the legal requirements for incorporation, they gain real existence. So overall, the concession theory highlights that corporate power is not inherent, it is a grant from the state, so it is meant to balance private business interests with the public good.
And lastly is the business judgment rule. So the business judgment rule basically protects officers and directors in business decisions. So as long as they act in good faith, Like they don't have any conflict of interest, they're acting for the good of the business, and they have a sound judgment that their business decisions will go well, they won't be held liable for losses in case the business decision fails. So the exception to this rule is if they act in bad faith. So let's say, for example, there is conflict of interest involved, or they act out of negligence or fraud. So since they are in bad faith, this rule won't be applied to them, and the officers and directors will be held liable for losses.